We have Jay Robinson, who is from the SAS Institute. We have Luis Madrigal. I didn't say that right, but he's the engineering manager from Uber. And then we have Zahed Ahmed from Pitney Bowes, who led the implementation of a very cool device, which we'll talk about today. So guys, come on up. Give them a hand, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks, Luis. Thanks, Jay. All right, let's get this party started. All right, so we all know their names, we know their titles, but what I'd like to do is ask them to give a little introduction about themselves, right? And then what their business actually does, so that you'll understand the context of how they actually used Android. So, Jay, let's start with you way on the end. Sorry, you got to pass the mic. So, Jay, tell us who you are, what you do, what's your story in life, and then what does SAS Institute do?
I'm Jay Robinson. I like long walks on the beach. I'm the systems engineer at SAS Institute and mobility architect. That's my role. I work within IT on the enterprise mobility solutions team. So we're responsible for the management and the security of mobile devices. I work in a four-man group, and I'm responsible for our EMM. Try not to put the mic in my mouth. You said introduce my SAS as well, correct?
Yeah, give us an idea. What does SAS Institute do?
So SAS is a privately owned software company based out of Cary, North Carolina. We provide business analytics software and services to customers in 148 countries. So SAS really drives, or we're a leader in analytics.
Cool. Luis?
Hey, how's everybody doing? My name's Luis Madrigal, and you almost got it. You almost got it. I'm an engineering manager at Uber. I've been at Uber for 4.5 years. When I started, there was about 70 of us in engineering, and there's close to 6,000 engineers now. So I was brought on board to lead mobility projects. My first project was to take 50,000 iPhones that were managed with some free MDMware that was out there, and put in an enterprise-grade MDM solution, build a team around it, and we scaled that up to about 1 million connected driver phones. And now we have a whole slew of mobility projects, everything from your IT devices for employees, BYOD, corporate-owned tablets in conference rooms and training centers, Uber Eats restaurants, and a bunch of really other cool IoT projects. So I recently took over about 3 different initiatives. So corporate mobility, product mobility, which we've always kind of kept separate until recently, and what we call endpoint management, which is all the computers that connect Uber employees, so all the Mac, Windows, and Linux deployment. So my team's currently 13. I'm hiring if anybody's interested. Got tons of open roles on the team and continuing to grow and help Uber expand. I don't think I need to explain who Uber is, but if anybody hasn't taken an Uber, make sure to see me after, and I'll hook you up with a code.
Hey, I want one of those. No. Zahed, how about you, buddy?
Yes, I'm Zahed Ahmed, and I'm part of Pitney Bowes SMB division, chief architect. They're responsible for the Android appliance. Our appliance basically enables mailing and shipping processes at SMB sites, as well as enterprise sites. We've been in the journey of using an Android appliance for about 18 months now, and we have approximately 60,000 devices actively being used at various SMB sites around the world. And we do mailing, shipping, credit line based payments as well. It's a very postal compliant, secure device. So we'll talk more about these things in the course of the conversation here.
I'll let you hold the mic there, Zahed. I got mine. So, anyway, all right. So thanks for that introduction, guys. Luis, let's just start with you, since you got the mic this time. It's obvious, right, that your business relies on mobility. But why don't you give us an idea, like, about your beginnings of your journey? Why is mobility so important to Uber?
While a lot of companies, years ago were screaming mobile first, and these mobile first strategies were really taking over, Uber's part of the generation of mobile only, right? And Coming on board at Uber, 4.5 years ago, Uber's been around for 8 years. It was very obvious that mobile was core to its presence, to how it expanded, how it grew, and pretty much every product is launched with a mobile first, well, a mobile-only mindset, right? We exist exclusively on mobile devices, though we have some web presence out there. So it's really interesting to see a business that there's a handful of businesses that really do the mobile-only thing really good. Venmo. What else do I use? Hotel Tonight, right? So I classify Uber in this mobile-only strategy, and every product that we launch really has that mindset, right? Can we bootstrap, say, Uber Eats by deploying hardware and tablets out to restaurants, and can we build a marketplace by owning, that whole mobile experience, not just application experience? And it's been very successful for Uber's growth.
Thank you. That's obviously, like, you pretty much rely on mobility, it's safe to say then. So Jay, over to you. Give us an idea of what is the importance of mobility. When I say mobility, I'm talking more about phones and tablets. Let's just make that clear. So give me an idea how where do you see that's importance, the importance of that in your organization?
So the mobile devices at SAS are really deployed to knowledge workers. These are devices that we're giving users or allowing users to use to really increase productivity and communication, and really allow them to figure out better ways to do their job and how it fits into their workflow. And so around mobility, we're really trying to give the user the ability to find their tools and use the devices that they're comfortable using to be better employees.
Excellent. All right, Zahed, you have a little different use case. You guys built a special purpose device. Why don't you give us an idea of how important that is to your business?
Yeah, so we have a device that's called Send Pro C Series. It's that's the commercial name, but technically we call it the connected sending device. And it really uses the Android mobile operating system's power and extensibility to customize the device. We've done a lot of customizations at the application platform level for the types of application we want to be deploying on the device, mailing and shipping, as well as other SMB-centric applications. We have single sign-on and application management, over-the-air updates of apps, many other aspects that take advantage of the mobile operating system, but really it's really an IoT appliance more than a handheld device. And as an IoT appliance, it also has a footprint with a real-time operating system underneath that Android tablet that does quite a bit of our financial processing in a postal compliant way. So it's a very powerful appliance. We'll talk more about it.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Zahed. I appreciate that. Since you have the mic, let's just stay with you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your journey. Where did your journey begin when you decided to meet this use case?
Yeah, so we started with the experimental Android appliance in the summer of 2016. And it was our first attempt to transform our device. That the devices have been enabling shipping and mailing at SMB sites, 500,000 SMB sites around the world for many, many years. So then we experimented in introducing a connected version of that device on the Android platform to see how the market takes that. And it was very favorable. Then we said, all right, on the same Android operating system, Android 6, let's have a much more comprehensive standard application platform. We shipped another version of that connected sending device in the fall of 2017. That one has had very favorable adoption from the market, and we have about 60,000 appliances already operational since fall of 2017. So now we are kind of evolving that. There's a lot of exciting capabilities coming out. It's all about the app ecosystem. How do we increase the productivity of our SMBs with adjacent set of apps? whether they're CRM related, contact management, some vertical domain apps around insurance, legal, dental, medical related, apps, but all tying back to enhancing the productivity around shipping and mailing, e-commerce, digital commerce, but trying to deal with the whole spectrum of related set of apps, So the extensibility of Android platform is incredible,
So basically, you took an Android tablet and you made that the engine of your device.
That's right, the app ecosystem engine, Yeah.
Excellent. All right, let's just pass it on down. Luis, give me an idea. Tell me about your journey again. I mean, I know mobility is like the key thing for what you do, but give us a little sense on like how Android became. When did you decide Android might be the right way to do this?
So 2 use cases. One for Uber drivers. They're now all BYOD, but we rewind the clock to when I started at Uber, and for the first 2 years of my tenure there, we were providing iOS experiences for all the drivers because it was actually only a driver app written for iPhones. So we had to deploy iPhones. Then Uber aggressively started expanding. Brazil, India, you name it, and we couldn't get enough iPhones sorted there. So we turned to our partners over at Google to help us with, local manufacturers, some manufacturers that already had pipelines and supply chain available. So we actually ended up, for Uber drivers, we created a custom Android device. I ended up going to CES, took about 20 different devices from all sorts of manufacturers, found one that we felt was a great price point, customized the ROM, and we actually worked with early Android for Work APIs to provision Google accounts. We had this massive outage in India where too many phones had the same Google accounts when they were setting them all up, and they started logging themselves out. So what happens is your Google API services stop updating because you no longer have a Google account logged into the device. And tons of drivers started lining up at our support centers, and we were like, how do we fix this? We worked closely with the then Android for Work team, and now we continue to work closely with Android for Enterprise. So we deployed those devices. We got to mass adoption, and then we started bringing it all back down to let drivers use their personal phones, which is a great call. It was really expensive to manage 1 million devices. So now on Uber Eats, similarly, we had more iOS engineers working on Uber Eats. They wrote a restaurant application experience for all the back-end, the ordering, the processing, and we started deploying iPads. And very similarly, as we experienced with the driver devices, we ended up getting to where they were expanding internationally, and we couldn't get enough tablets, enough iPads deployed. So we, again, turned to Google, and now it's actually, I'd say, it's Android tablets have actually overcome the amount of iOS tablets that are out at Uber Eats restaurants, and we continue to order and work with a couple of partners in the Android tablet space. So we leverage the device owner APIs. We leverage some of those, Android enterprise kind of auto provisioning so that we don't run into the same issues. And then a lot of the rest of the Android enterprise suite is really on our corporate mobility side, right? Bring your own device for employees, the Samsung devices we deploy for employees. So yeah, it's been, we draw a lot of synergies, as most of everybody here that is in mobility, of what you do in the IT space for corporate devices, and then we apply those to product. So deploying, these hundreds of thousands of tablets in the Uber Eats ecosystem. So it's been a ton of fun, and it's been quite the journey to continue seeing a whole different business unit, learn from the mistakes and the challenges that we had on the Uber driver side, but applying it to Uber Eats restaurants.
Wow, thanks, Lisa. That's a really good description of your journey. It's pretty awesome. Jay, I know you guys are more of the knowledge worker, right? So your users have choice. They obviously can pick one versus the other, but give me an idea. Like, I know you guys were early adopters of Android, but when was the decision made, and give us an idea of why you decided to allow Android?
Yeah, so I would say the decision was made, day one. Smartphones at SaaS really grew organically, pretty much the same way it grew at other enterprises. They get popular and people bring them to work, and then they're like, hey, manage this, let me connect to these systems, let me do this. And so we definitely didn't, being user-driven, the choice was very obvious. We wanted to offer iOS and Android to make our users happy, make them more productive, allow them to use the device they're most comfortable with. I'm going to come back to the term a whole lot. Device most comfortable with. But yeah, that was very important for us, especially given some of our ownership models. So at SAS, we offer COPE, CYOD, and BYOD ownership models. These have also kind of grown organically. We started off just saying we're going to own this device, and with user privacy and that type of thing, you can't just say I'm going to own your device and all the data on it. And so then we kind of started building a CYOD type deal where the user can own their device and we can take ownership over our content on the device. And that sounds a whole lot like the use case for Android for work profiles. And so when we heard of this, not only was that a good use case for us, we were very excited to have native management functionality. I mean, it's usually easier to use the native tools to manage a device rather than using some proprietary tools. Not saying there's no place for those, but I can do it rather than having a team of people doing it. So I would definitely say, our journey, it started day one. We're iOS and Android from the start.
Excellent, thanks. This won't be, I'm going to direct this at all three of you, and then you can, whoever wants to jump in. When you did decide to move into Android land, right, were there any obstacles internal that you had to kind of face? And if they were, tell me what they were and how you overcame them.
At SAS, I would say some of the obstacles we faced internally were around the perceptions around Android. The perceptions that the devices aren't secure, can't be managed. Kind of that black box of I don't know what it's giving me back. I don't know where my stuff's going there. So we really, I would say overcoming that was really just kind of working with our internal stakeholders. When we started deploying our EMM, we're looking around and we're trying to figure out what systems we can connect to Wi-Fi, VPN, start authentication, mail, and working with each of these individual teams, we're learning more and more about the Android platform and what we can do on them. And I think that went a long way towards kind of putting those perceptions to rest.
Excellent. Luis, or Zahid, anyone?
As I think back, it's I think one of the challenges we had was before device owner on Android devices, you could be device admin. So a lot of MDM apps were device admin, and we actually worked with a couple of the big MDM names to create a kiosk experience, essentially lock you in and only display the certain applications. But there was always all sorts of hacks and ways to get around that, and I think one of our challenges was as we would deploy these devices out in the wild, you'd see a lot of them start to disappear, get wiped, and they show up on eBay or Craigslist or whatnot. And until device owner was actually introduced, we were then able to a lot more granularly control and secure these mobile devices. So I think working closely with Google, working closely with MDM vendors to create that better security experience. But other than that, I think it's less challenges. I think we were actually pushing for Android because of the supply chain availability. Android just jumped the gun on being available in all sorts of countries via different manufacturers. So I think we had quite the opposite. It was more a lot of people cheering us on to get Android out there.
Excellent. Zahid, I mean, you really had I guess you had a choice, but...
Well, we did have a choice of going device admin mode or device owner mode, but since we never really shipped a device with the EMM, we said, all right, let's start with device owner mode from the beginning. But of course, if you peel the onion there, device owner mode requires GMS compliance. So that's GMS compliance gives you a standardized Android platform, and you have to kind of balance that out with customizing the Android platform at the application platform level, but still get the standardized base operating system. To enable DO enrollment, device owner mode enrollment, you have to have GMS compliance. And so this is all good. It was a learning curve for us to reach that milestone of GMS compliance, which has now paved the road, for enabling device owner mode enrollment of our devices at scale. We'll talk about that. I'm sure we have various different experiences within the panel here.
Yeah, so thanks. So basically you guys built a custom tablet, built your own Android ROM, and made it GMS compatible.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, let's change gears just a little bit. Zahid, we can just stay with you since you have the mic. But give me an idea. Like, so hopefully everyone in the audience has heard about the Android Enterprise Recommended program. So I'd like to ask what you guys think about that program. What has it brought to your organization, and then as a follow-on to that, like, what would you like to see added to that program that might help your business in the future?
Right. Yeah, so Android Enterprise, to me, technically speaking, it means that obviously you have that GMS compliance, standardized operating system to enable security patch management. But more than that, it enables how do you want to manage the device, in terms of device owner mode enrollments, taking advantage of Play Protect. Play Protect is fantastic from the standpoint of securing the applications that are going to be distributed on the Android device. It enables scanning of the application, dynamic scanning as well as static scanning of the apps. So when you are distributing the apps through the Enterprise Play Store, they get scanned as part of registering and publishing the apps on the Play Store. But then also when you are installing those apps, updating those apps on the device, there's dynamic scanning also enabled through Play Protect on the device. So it really keeps the end-to-end security of the app distribution on through the Android Enterprise infrastructure, seamlessly, secure.
Okay.
That's really fantastic.
Excellent. Luis, what about you? What does it mean for you guys?
Don't believe we have it in production yet, or we're leveraging any of that particular functionality, to my knowledge at least, but I'm sure my teams are actually exploring it, especially on the corporate mobility side where we're deploying a lot of more of the Android enterprise features. But as far as I'm aware right now, the recommended functionality and tool set, I don't believe we're actually utilizing it at this moment.
Okay, Jay, what about you? Android Enterprise Recommended program for you guys.
Yeah. So the recommended program, the way I see it, or the pieces that I care about, are basically, these are devices that are vetted based on criteria that enterprises care about. So especially for us, things like OS updates, making sure they're going to get a couple of major releases, things like security patch deployment, making sure they get deployed in a timely fashion, and things like our global offices are probably going to care about as we begin to roll out some more advanced functionality like ZTE, and making sure that all of these devices have unlocked variants available. I like it. This is great. This is going to streamline a lot of our device selection processes. As I mentioned before, we've got 3 different ownership models. We've got COPE, CYOD, and BYOD. So COPE is our corporate-owned device that SaaS is paying money for. And obviously we want to make sure that we're making a good investment in these devices. So I don't want to purchase a device and then in 3 months it misses a security patch and then boom, it's getting restricted access. So these are things that we care about, and these are things that we've been vetting internally within my team on the individual devices that we choose. Order a device and check it out. Give me a couple weeks to play with it a little bit, and just make sure this device is, make a best guess as to if this device is going to be a good investment or not. And right now, Android Enterprise is pretty much taking that responsibility out of my hands. I can really refer to that list, not just for my team when we're making our decisions based on COPE, but for our global offices, where I may not be able to fly over to London and say, hey, let me have a look at some of your devices. I'd like to. I really would like to, but I can't. And then also with the CYOD deployments, a user who's going to go purchase their own device may not know what device to choose or what things to care about when they're looking at a superior management experience. And so we can point to this list, and it's got devices up there.
Great, thanks guys. So just by show of hands, how many people in the audience know what Android Enterprise Recommended is? Okay. I'm going to make a plug for my buddy. Later on today, over in Moscone West, there is a full session on what Android Enterprise Recommended is. I highly recommend that you go check it out. Just a little plug there. All right, so let's move on. Jay, since you got, actually, let me just throw this out to all of you, and then we can just kind of move it back this way. But as you were going through your POCs with friends and family, your IT friends and family, and you moved out to user acceptance testing and so on and so forth. What did you learn about Android that maybe you and some of your colleagues didn't know? It can be anything.
I think two things really stand out to me, and one of them is actually pretty obvious. Obviously, we picked Android for Work profile, obviously Android Enterprise profile. So we knew there was that separation between work and personal, and I think that really was it was a good comfort to our users. It was a very obvious separation there, so they know, hey, look, this is my data, this is SaaS's data, and they know when that disappears, okay. SaaS's data is gone. My data is safe. But another thing is slightly more technical that as I kind of researched Android Enterprise and tried to get more comfortable around the security of Android devices, and actually this came up in the summit a while ago, was Project Treble, and just kind of digging into that. I mean, I think it's really cool. They're trying to tackle two issues that we care about especially, but this is around the speed of OS deployment. And security for the platform. So basically with Project Treble, and I'm sure this is a drastic oversimplification, they're kind of defining the lines of the how, the hardware abstraction layer, and this one makes it harder to actually use exploits in the wild, but two, this should simplify what OEMs have to do to get their software updated. And I was just really impressed with that, kind of looking at the diagrams and explanations. That was definitely something that I talked to my security guys about, and it's like, hey, look what's coming. You're not going to be able to talk about our updates anymore. So.
I couldn't have explained it better. You want a job as an SE? No. Luis, give me an idea of some of the things you learned about Android that maybe it's just a misperception.
Well, I just got a head nod from one of my engineers that we do use the recommended program, so it's actually active in our corporate IT, and so I stand corrected. Right on. I actually came back from Uber Freight, where I built a IoT platform back in March, and recently grouped all these different mobility initiatives under one team. So we in that time from March to now, we also launched BYOD. And if we rewind the clock, the first time I launched BYOD was like 6 years ago. And the Android experience then to the Android experience now, oh my God, it's night and day. I can't tell you how many users unenrolled their devices after enrolling them 6.5 years ago, and all the crazy bugs that we couldn't even file them all with Google and our MDM vendor back then. And I believe after having the team test the most popular devices by region, just seeing that there were not many issues, a little bug here and there, but really Android Enterprise, I think, speaks to how much that user experience has enhanced. And we continue to drive adoption. We're rolling out our BYOD across major regions and across major countries. So it's a little bit more controlled, just in case we catch any surprises of weird manufactured devices. But after launching in about 4 countries now, it's night and day compared to my previous BYOD experience, particularly on the Android side. So I think the Android, for work, the Android Enterprise experience that you kind of talked about, almost like this containerization and division between employees' own personal experience on the device and the corporate managed content. The way that it's done, I'm actually really happy that a lot of this, that Google took ownership of this, because in the directions that it was previously going, I felt like everybody had their own customizations and they didn't work across all the fleets evenly. And so it's a much more unified experience today.
Thank you, Luis. We like to say we've normalized the management of Android. That's how we like to say it. So, Zahid, let's change directions on you, because I got a couple of really cool questions I want to get out before we run out of time. But from a platform, let's say ecosystem perspective, is there, and even from the platform and all the partners, is there anything that you feel would benefit your business that maybe the ecosystem or Google could add to Android, like maybe services or just even features?
Yeah, so I think for our dedicated, purpose-built Android appliance, single sign-on experience for multi-users is very key. We have solved the problem of app distribution and device management through Enterprise Play Store and EMM infrastructure, but multi-user single sign-on, where we enable access to the appliance for multiple users and personalize those experiences is going to be key down the road. So we have developed our own single sign-on capability with the help of Okta. And of course, in Android Enterprise, you have managed user access possibilities as well. We haven't explored that yet. But Android 9 already has multi-user single sign-on, kind of single sign-on. So we're going to try to leverage that when we go to Android 9, but we are on Android 7. So we had to develop this ourselves. So we're going to take a close look how multi-user access models are evolving for Android Enterprise, because we want to be directionally aligned with that. Right now we're in Android 7. When we move to the Android 9 in, say, about a year's time, we have to kind of decide what do we do with our own multi-user access model compared to where Android 9 is already there right now. Android 9 will be out in fall of this year, I think. So
Yeah,
very interesting.
I hope it is.
Yeah.
All right, let me just throw this one out to you guys, because now you guys are all in full production, and you have been for quite some time. Might be throwing myself under the bus. I hope not, but give me an idea. What are your users saying now that you're in production? Say nice things, please. I'm leading them. I shouldn't be doing that.
So we did an opt-in deployment, and SaaS IT is actually very user and support driven. We want to give our users a very good experience, a lot of high-level support, and we try to listen to their feedback. So actually during this deployment, we actually had some lunch and learns where we'd actually have users come in and yell at us, or talk to us, ask us questions, burning questions, that type of deal. Or it could be something as simple as, hey, how do I do this? And so during that time, we actually got a lot of feedback from our users. Sorry, that threw me off a little bit. And we've had positive and negative. I mean, that's just how users are. They're going to point out the good things and the bad things. I would say, and I'm going to say some of the negative stuff, but this is actually in a good light. So some of them didn't like that some apps couldn't talk across the work personal boundary, and explaining to them, this is by design. We're protecting ourselves and we're protecting your privacy, essentially. And saying that over and over again, and I think they kind of got the point. And I think as they use the device, they started to realize, okay, this is cool. I do feel more comfortable doing whatever I want on my side, and knowing that the corporate data is safe, and even having the ability to turn off work. That a lot of people like that, myself included. Sometimes on weekends, I just got to unplug. At least from work. I plug in at home and play video games and stuff, but you get what I'm saying. But I would definitely say that was probably some of the strongest feedback, and it kind of shifted from why can't these apps talk to, I'm glad these apps can't talk.
Luis, you're up. Give me an idea of what your drivers are saying.
So I think no feedback is good feedback. So we tend to deploy some of these devices and we don't hear, and we assume, hey, things are working right. So that's the strongest indicator of like, hey, things are working and they're acceptable. When we do solicit feedback, obviously there is more constructive feedback that kind of comes back our way. But I believe, hey, restaurants seem to be enjoying the Android experience and our Android application that's running. Our users enjoy the ability to opt into a corporate the Android Enterprise recommended program or our BYOD option as well. And I think, from what I've noticed, the ability that we have to, at device enrollment, recommend the applications that we have our own internal chat application. We have our own beta apps for Uber. So it's one of the avenues that we use to distribute our beta apps. And I think that's a lot of more critique comes from our engineers, because they don't like their devices getting messed with, and they have a certain expectation of how things should work. So I think more on the operational side, and I think most of everybody seems pretty happy with the Android experience.
Excellent. Zahid, I'm going to again change it up again. What just because you've got so many devices out there, have your SMB users seen efficiencies with this new device? I mean, over the old platform?
Definitely, I think the reliability and seamless, processes we have for mailing and shipping. We are, from the business process is very much like, printing out a mailing or shipping a label, and so we have to get that whole process streamlined. So that's always been a requirement, but the reliability of the Android tablet itself has helped a lot to keep the productivity high for the SMBs, and now with the addition of other apps that we can have on the device, it's going to also increase their productivity quite a bit. So yeah, I think the Android experience will help. It is helping, and as Louis was saying, no negative comments is actually good news, and a lot of our feedback is from our engineers and QA testing teams and user experience team as well, where we kind of iron out a lot of the challenges. And we also have a beta program where we have extended set of tests done on site at customer sites for early adopters to kind of iron out some of the challenges.
Excellent. So it sounds to me like I could summarize. No news is good news in this case because no help desk calls equals no time spent, because we've normalized things for you guys, right? All right, cool. I'd like to ask the panelists if there's one thing that you could lay out on the folks that did not raise their hand that are supporting Android, what would you want to say to them?
It's definitely evolved from when I took a look at it and deployed it, years ago. And I think that I'm starting to see a lot more devices. Any cash register you check out on, there's tons of Androids, different flavors. It seems to be a platform of choice for e-commerce. And as we're looking at connected bikes, connected scooters, all of those sort of strategies, there may be kind of an opportunity there to continue to explore. So don't just limit it to corporate employees.
Just kind of judging off of our experience with deploying our EMM, I would definitely say really focus on documentation, make the users aware of what you're doing and what's going to, in the expected experience, and listen to feedback, because these users can figure out weird ways to use their devices. Listen to their feedback, help to enable your users and renew your documentation.
Yeah, I would say that look at the connected device use cases for your own enterprise very carefully and see where the hotspots are, whether it's platform, patch management, device provisioning, application provisioning. Look at the hotspots and have an end-to-end, solution plan, over like an 18 to 24-month timeline.
Excellent. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out of your day. Really appreciate you guys coming up. Everyone, let's give a warm thank you to Jay, Luis, and Ahmed. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.